Unpopular opinion, or maybe not so unpopular, but just not so much of a publicly declared sentiment. These musicals are pretty much timeless. I am a huge sucker for musicals. If you see me in real life, you might not get the impression that I like musicals or have any like interests in musicals, just don't listen to musicals. You might get that impression. Maybe you do, maybe you won't. But I am a huge sucker for them, as I said. I've always been so drawn to music in a way because music is very expressive, it's very telling, it can tell so many stories. And within musicals, if done right, it can be another great form of how we tell stories through song and then through other dialogue. You get more knowledge within the story in a musical, and there's more to dissect. And musicals have been a very popular genre in Hollywood for many years. Some of the most memorable, popular, award-winning movies in the industry have been musicals since the mid 20th century. But recently, in the last few years, people have been sort of turning away from musicals. So much so to the fact that now when movies come out with musicals, they hide the musicals or the fact that it is a musical within the trailer to kind of sneak more audiences in. This was heavily apparent within some recent adaptations with Willy Wonka or the movie Wonka with Timothy Chalamet. Mean Girls, the musical, which was an adaptation of the musical on Broadway, of the movie Mean Girls that Tina Fey wrote. And in 2024, Part 1 came out, and it was successful in the fact that it was a turnaround for how unapologetic it was about the fact that it was a musical. But mainly for a fact that even though it had reasons as to why it wouldn't be successful, it still targeted itself to a very specific audience. It was an audience that was it was targeted to a very specific theater nerd loving audience, people who love Broadway, people who have been seeing the have been seeing the musical Wicked since it premiered on Broadway in 2003. Many of generations, well, it's really oh, never mind. Many generations going forward will remember the first part of Wicked as a very iconic movie, and they will it'll just be very it's very cemented in the musical bible of theater kids. So within that, it's kind of like a turnaround how we view it in general. So I'm here to say that musicals are very timeless, and they're very and they're still a very important way of storytelling. So that's the point of this episode, to amateurly argue the fact that movies are timeless, and I'll give you some reasons why. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast. Let's discuss. I'm your host, Nick Marshall, and I just simply come on here and just simply talk about whatever I want. And so let's just get into it. A brief history of musicals is it traces back to the ancient Greece of Rome, according to Google, where plays incorporated music and dance. This tradition evolved through the Middle Ages, where religious dramas and traveling performers, the Renaissance with Italian opera, buffa, and English plays, and the 18th century with ballad operas like the Bargar's opera. The modern musical was shaped by the 19th century works of Gilbert and Sullivan, and Harrigan and Hart, who established structural elements. The 20th century saw the rise of an integrated book musical, where songs and dance are essential to the plot, culminating in landmark shows like Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma. The mid 20th century, musicals really did pop off. It was pretty much the regular for a movie in the golden age of Hollywood to have like some sort of musical format in some way, in some form. Typically, in like the golden age of Hollywood, studios would train their actors to do all three things: sing, act, and dance. If a star was like a triple threat, then the bigger chance of them booking roles. Let's say, for example, Judy Garland. Judy Garland could probably tap dance, I think. Yeah, she could dance, and she could sing, and then she can act. And because of that, she was pretty much able to like do any radio show, book any movie, while also like being like drilled by the studios and ruining her life and health. And then there's other stars like, let's say, Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly was a dancer, and he can also sing and act. He was a triple threat too, but like everyone remembers his dancing the most, and like I think like Singing in the Rain. Those are just like small examples of like triple threats. Like if an actor could like act, sing, and dance, they could like book roles more faster. And then like most of the movies in the golden age of Hollywood had musical elements, and they could sing. Everyone loved musicals. Like almost every single movie in the 20th century of Hollywood was a musical in some way, shape, or form. The more like successful musicals like The Sound of Music or Mary Poppins have garnered so much like recognition and money. Another musical I'm thinking about, West Side Story, where everyone like were like it was still like pretty like successful, and it was an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. And then like in the 20th century, not every actor could sing, so they did a lot of dubbing over the actors' voices to like secure the illusion of like, oh, this is so great, this is like such a beautiful musical. Another like a huge example in this, and I'll talk about the movie again later on in the episode, My Fair Lady, a movie adaptation of the same play that was playing in, I think, on Broadway or like somewhere in England. But it starred Rex Harrison and Julie Andrews again, and then Rex Harrison in the movie, and then replacing Julie Andrews with Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn wasn't a major singer, so they got a dub singer named Marnie Nixon to like perform majority of the songs that Audrey Hepburn was supposed to sing as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. There's only like one song that we could hear Audrey Hepburn like actually like sing, and it was Just You Wait, Mr. Higgins, because that's like the only song that you could actually hear her voice. And then there's like another existing recording, like fully Wouldn't It Be Lovely, where you would hear Audrey Hepburn sing actually, and she's actually pretty good. So it would make more sense if she sang if she was actually singing in the beginning, and then they would like actually like switch to the dubbing later on in the film to like show her progression of like learning better intonation or like speech or like whatever.
Some chocolate for me to eat, lots of cow mike, lots of meat, warm face, warm hands, warm feet. How would it be lovely if you're in love? Show me, tell me no dreams filled with desire. If you're on fire, show me. Here we are together in the middle of the night. Don't talk of spring, just hold me.
That was like such a huge practice in the 20th century of Hollywood, because like musicals in the 20th century were like so popular. Nowadays in the modern age, musicals have garnered like more negative reviews. So why are musicals being so hated in the first place? The obvious answer is just like it's not everyone's cup of tea. Like not everyone likes everything, and that's like fine. It's fine. Whatever. But there's still like more reasons as to why it's not everyone's cup of tea, and some are reasonable and then some are not. So let's just get into it. Some of the things I looked up when like searching this is like it breaks realism. It says many find it jarring when characters break into song in what is otherwise a realistic setting, pulling them out of the story. They may prefer a consistent dramatic style, either realistic or theatrical. and not a mix of both. To this, I say that's okay. I mean, like, I understand, like, in real life, if someone breaks out into song and dance, it is weird, and you would look at the person like they're crazy. Because it is unrealistic for someone like break into song and dance, and then there's a whole like invisible like musical soundtrack playing out of thin air, and they're dancing on tables, singing about whatever is coming to their mind on perfect pitch, being so happy that you think that they're high. And that's weird. But I feel like this criticism, while it does have some truth, it gets a little, I guess there's a little bit of hypocrisy in it because of the fact that like it breaks realism, and we don't really like watch film and TV for 100% of realism because of the fact that like it's fiction. So like, how do I put this straight? Like, within TV and film, whatever genre, book, even though like the storylines within books, within TV, within fictional media takes inspiration from like real life situations, scenarios, and lessons that will be learned in the end that reflect your personal life, it's still heavily rooted in fiction and unrealistic expectations. Like rom-coms, it's fiction, so we don't really look to TV and film for 100% realism. Relatability, yes, but realism, no. A lot of it is escapism because of the fact that it's TV and film. It's more like an escape from reality to an extent. And we do like to see things reflected back onto us for representation. That is the key. But to an extent, another one is artificiality. The sudden shift from dialogue to song and dance is seen as artificial. Some prefer musical numbers to be reserved for high emotional or significant moments, rather than every feeling or event. That also has some truth to it. Some musicals have a perfect mixture of dialogue and then song breaks. Not every single musical does it right. It gets very like cheesy when like every single scene, you know there's gonna be like a song that's gonna come on at any given moment, even if the song is like good. If every single song is great and you don't really complain about it, but it's the fact that like you don't really have like a moment of like peace. There's no balance, let's say. If there's no balance, then like the musical falls flat. And then some musicals do very well with the fact of balancing like dialogue and musicals. A musical that comes to mind is Chicago, where the musicals are done in dream sequences, and it's because the main character Roxy is very imaginative. She sees herself as like a huge star, so it makes sense for the musical numbers to be like
the name on everybody's lips is gonna be Roxy. The lady raking in the chips is gonna be Roxy.
more dream sequences, and it's not really like rooted in realism. It's not real. Everything's in her imagination. So when the musicals do come, we know that they're not breaking out into song and dance randomly. She's imagining this. So that's like the perfect mixture of balance between like dialogue and storyline, all of that. And it's the perfect mixture of balance in between both that we can see like a natural like I guess like a transition like within the story that doesn't feel rushed, it doesn't feel cheesy. It's still very enjoyable to like the targeted audience of like theater-loving kids, and then also the general audience who are tuning into this movie for whatever reason. One of the reasons might be they just find it very interesting. They want to like see how musicals are. Maybe they've never seen a musical before, and they're just curious. So it presents like a very like balanced scenario where everyone is happy, and I think Chicago does just that. Another is music and taste. I said this earlier, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but a person's dislike for the musical genre or style used in shows such as rap and Hamilton can be major reasons for not enjoying it. Like I said, like not everyone has the same like musical taste, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Musicals are not always like show tunes. Some are like very upbeat, some of them are very power ballads, some are very like campy or like very rap based. Like musicals, we see musicals in like one specific like genre, and it's like show tune, but it's not always in show tune. Another one is plot and character issues. Some people find the plots in musicals to be weak or predictable, while others feel there's not enough character development beyond romance. Some plots are so perceived as overly childish or horrific. There is some truth to that. Again, it's like I said in the other one, in Artificiality. A perfect mixture of like story and song dialogue can be it can be like a nicer way to like actually like tell the story. I feel like overly relying on the music aspect and not really the plot can like get you into huge trouble. Besides all of that, musicals have a very political message. Musicals have always been like a tool to like spread awareness to social issues going on into the world. They do this by using powerful storytelling to create emotional connections with audiences, reflecting society's issues, fostering empathy, and sparking dialogues. They humanize marginalized groups, challenge stereotypes, and provide a platform to discuss complex topics like race, mental health, gender, sexuality, and turning entertainment into a tool for education and social change. A huge example is the musical Hairspray had representation for body positivity with its main character, Tracy. They're also a home for people of many backgrounds coming together to put on a show. It specifically became a safe space for a lot of like LGBTQ actors in the past and present for obvious reasons. But especially during Broadway and the 80s, during like the AIDS crisis, the music aspect in Ariel was produced by a gay man. His name was Howard Ashman, and he was a brilliant lyricist and director who was a key force behind the Disney Renaissance. Known for his universal themes and powerful I Want songs like Part of Your World, often reflecting his own experiences as a gay man living with AIDS.
Where the people are, I wanna see 'em dancing, walking around on those, what do you call 'em? Oh, feet. Flipping your fins, you don't get too far. Legs are required for jumping, dancing, strolling along down a, what's that word again?
But besides the fact that they're like they're political, musicals are just simply whimsical, and they're fun, and they just simply move the story. For me, it does. You can disagree. To me, music does enhance the story. The songs that are used in musicals tells us, the audience, what's going to happen in the story in the beginning. Like, for example, like big overtures that like give off like the vibe of the musicals, and then upbeat songs give us like more insight into the characters' minds and like a more energetic way. And then like power ballads gives us more like an internal like reflection or like struggle, or sometimes it's love ballads that are powerful ballads, and it like goes into like the characters' relationships and feelings, and like it gets very like cheesy, and it can be very cutesy. And songs that come to mind are like There Are Worse Things I Could Do in the movie Grease, and it reveals the more vulnerable oh god. Songs that do come to mind that gives us more like insight into characters are Grease's There Are Worse Things I Could Do, that reveal a more like vulnerable side to the character Rizzo, who has in the beginning been giving off a very like tough girl attitude and very like cool girl facade in comparison to like Sandy's very like innocent nature. And then High School Musical's When There Is Me and You shows us a disillusioned Gabriella expressing heartbreak over Choi's comments about her to his friends when they're like trying to like break them up. And then in more like romantic moments, we see songs used to like show like the true like emotions of like what's going on and how the characters are feeling with each other, like the song Tonight and West Side Story with Tony and Maria. We're invited to like feel this intense like longing and emotion with these two characters, and then it's expressed like before in the song Maria, where Tony is like singing and yearning for this, yearning to know more about Maria. We're invited to like feel that same euphoria that they're feeling and those more like romantic charged moments. It's very interesting how music can like enhance your own emotions in the story. It invites you to like feel along with the character, and that doesn't mean like it's the only way to like invite yourself to feel with the characters. Acting plays a huge part in it. If you can't really like act out the story as well as sing what you're feeling, if you're in a musical, then we as the audience don't really know what to do with it. We're just seeing you sing. We don't really know what you're feeling. If you're not acting or like actually feeling something, then we don't really know, and that's where musicals can fall flat. But then again, it doesn't always fall flat, and then some musicals get it right, some don't. And that's just simply a 50-50 chance. And that's what can make musicals feel very timeless. And it can feel very nostalgic when you look back at your favorite musicals growing up, and you like you kind of just like enjoy. I guess you reminisce about a time in your life where you were very like young and naive, and you just simply like watch this musical growing up, and you just like see the characters like inspiring you, or like it gets into a very like specific headspace. Last reason as to why musicals are timeless is the constant reinvention and diverse appeal. Musicals are one of like the few genres in show business that can reinvent itself and still be successful. The amount of like musicals on Broadway or on stage that got turned into movies and had massive success, or like movies that then turned into like musicals, is pretty like impressive. Some like some are successful, and then some are successful in its own way. I think movies that have turned into musicals like Heather and Mean Girls, they have interesting results. I think Heather's turning into a musical was probably more popular in comparison to Mean Girls when it turned into a musical, and then it turned into another adaptation of that musical in film. It's very like it's very telling. But like a huge example as to when musicals on Broadway turned the stage that had huge success is, we're going back to to that movie I said before, My Fair Lady. And like I said, it was like a staged musical originally starring Julie Andrews and Rex Harrison, and it got adapted to the movie musical, also starring Rex Harrison and then Audrey Hepburn, like I said. And it was very big, very successful. I remember like watching that movie, it will be 5 years ago now. And I was very impressed with the musical. It's very like campy, it's fun, and I like the style of singing that Rex Harrison did as Higgins. It was talk singing. He was like talking, but he was still like singing to an extent. Yeah, one song was coming by, and he was like, damn. It was like, the song is I've grown accustomed to her face, and then like he's like, oh wait, okay. He's like, she almost makes the day begin. I've grown accustomed to her tune, that she whistled night and moon. Her smiles, her frowns, her ups and downs are second nature to me now. Like breathing out and breathing in, you know. Oh god. Okay, yeah. It was like a good song. He was like talk singing the whole time through the whole movie. And that's like a interesting pattern of singing to be like he just talk sings through the whole movie, and in the stage musical too. But like I just find it very like intriguing. It's very interesting. The film won 8 Oscars in all 12 categories. I think there's 12 categories in the Oscars. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it did win 8 Oscars. It cleaned out pretty much. Unfortunately, unfortunately, Audrey Hepburn didn't win. She didn't even get nominated for Best Actress in that movie. But a lot of people would say that Eliza Doolittle was like one of the finest of her careers. And a lot of people might shit on that role because she didn't sing in the movie, but like she did her own acting, as one critic would say. She didn't do her own singing, but she did her own acting. And that's something more, to be honest. And to be honest, Audrey Hepburn and Mari Nixon worked pretty well together. If I'm able to like put a clip in, they did a pretty good job in simply like working together to like portray the character in both forms. I said this already, but like I would have just simply kept her in the I would have like kept her dubbing, but like lead it towards the end as we see like a vocal transition. It would make more sense. It would make more sense. Another example is West Side Story. And the movie has like two versions that were successful in both 1964 and 2021. But the recent one is probably more like representative than the previous film with actual like Latino actors. And Rio Moreno, who played oh god, Anita in the original West Side Story, was like the only Latino actress on set, and the rest were just simply white actors in like tan makeup, overly used tan makeup. And that was a nice change of pace in the 2021 version. She was now a producer. She was like playing an actual like rewritten original character, and it was pretty successful. It was like more representative. It was more like it was much more better representation. I can't speak for everyone, but it seemed more like diverse than 1964's West Side Story. And another example is Wicked, being the most like popular music in the 21st century since it premiered in 2003. And then the film adaptation had everyone shocked and like very impressed, especially with Cynthia Erivo singing "Defying Gravity" in theaters. And it was like you were actually like seeing the musical for the first time. It was like people were like transformed back to 2003, and they saw Idina Menzel singing it for the first time, and it just brought us all back. Well, it didn't bring me back, but like it brought people who already seen the musical since the beginning back to that little space and time, and they just simply got to like reminisce, and it was pretty special. Musical adaptations have shown to be introduced. The biggest factor in all of this is that like musical adaptations have shown to like introduce the story to new fans and generations, for like new fans and generations to like enjoy the story, along with like not always like alienating the old audience that grew up with that musical. If I'm making sense. So yeah. Closing thoughts. Musicals are kind of like in a recession at the time of this recording, but like without musicals, Hollywood in general would be very bland and it would be very boring. There are plenty of genres that are in Hollywood that everyone loves, that are not based in 100% realism, like sci-fi or Marvel. But like musicals are somehow unrealistic with people bursting into song. It gets very like hypocritical when we like choose, like I've said this before, I got into like a mini tangent, but like we kind of like pick and choose the words realism or not. Like I feel like we don't, like I don't watch cartoons, or like I don't watch Batman because it's so realistic. I watch Batman because I find it very like fun. I find the story in general very exciting. It's very like it's like whatever. But like, and that's the same with musicals. It's very like fun. It's very whimsical, and I feel like there's just plenty of genres that aren't based in realism. So why are musicals somehow the most unrealistic? And musicals have shaped pop culture and raised political awareness at the same time. In the last century, of the entertainment industry. If it's, I mean, if it's not your cup of tea, understandable. But like, it would be inaccurate to say that musicals haven't done anything for pop culture when it made a very colorful mark on all of our childhoods, and continued and is still like continuing to do that for future generations. So musicals may be in a little bit of a recession period, but it won't really like stay that long. It'll still find audiences, and Wicked has proved that. So hopefully we would see more of a rise in actual good musicals to return to that format that we had growing up for millennials and like older Gen Zs like myself. Only time will tell. So yeah, that's all. All right, thank you for listening to the podcast. Let's discuss. You can find it on Spotify, anywhere you stream podcasts. You could like subscribe if you're watching this on if you're listening to this on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe to it if you made it this far, and you can follow me on Instagram. Okay. You can follow it on social media at Let's Discuss Podcast _ all lowercase on Instagram and TikTok, and you can follow me, Nick.Marshall02, all lowercase on Instagram. And I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, week, month, year. It's been an interesting talk. Just let me know what you're thinking about this. You can disagree if you think musicals are great, or if you disagree with musicals being timeless. It's fine. You just may not, enjoy fun. I'm kidding. But like, just let me know. Anyway, we'll talk very soon, and I'll see you. Well, you'll hear me again in the next one.